Here to shut this country down again?
I would be prepared to do whatever it takes to save lives, because we cannot get the country moving until we control the virus.
So if the scientists say shut it down?
I would shut it down.
The idea that more lockdowns are the answer to COVID is a discredited fever dream. Case in point, the little reported news that the European Union has once again become the world's COVID hotspot. Well, yesterday, the EU plus the UK, Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein reported 27,233 new cases compared to just 26,015 in the US. And as you can see in the charts here, Europe's caseload is clearly climbing while ours is in decline. Joining me now is Phil Kerpen, president of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Phil, there's a couple issues here, but the left held up Europe and its 90% lockdown as this paradigm of how it should be done. And then Biden went on to basically echo what Europe did and promised lockdowns in the future. What would that do at this point to get control of COVID?
It would have zero benefit in terms of controlling the spread of the disease, and it would be economically devastating yet again. And that should clearly be the lesson from Europe, because everyone was saying a few weeks ago, look how wonderful their hard lockdowns were. It was all worth it, even though they had mass devastation. And then you look and you say, well, no, the cases went right back up anyway. It accomplished nothing for all that it cost.
But when you look at the Worldometer website, which is my go-to, the deaths in Europe, and just like the deaths in places like Arizona and Texas, where they seem to have come close to herd immunity, if not already at herd immunity, they're very, very low compared to the peak. You know, every death is tragic. We mourn every loss of life. But that death and hospitalization rate, that's still the key metric, is it not?
It is, and that's really the good news about this sort of second wave in Europe right now, is it has much lower morbidity and mortality than what we saw with the really bad wave in March and April. And, that's certainly a huge, huge positive. And I think that's related to the fact that they're not in lockdown, that they're not in panic, that they don't have mass anxiety and disarray and people overflowing into hospitals with fear and anxiety and maybe being put on ventilators when they shouldn't be, or other mistakes being made. I think the president was right when he said you want to stay calm in a crisis and not panic. And it seems to me that we had the worst possible response in both Europe and the US when we were locking down and in disarray. And we're handling things much, much better now without that.
Barbara Ferrer, who is the LA County Health Director, was caught on tape in a conference call with nurses from various schools and other officials. When she was pressed about when schools could reopen, she says, oh, it's not conceivable until after the election. Right. How is that a metric for determining when schools should open? What does that show us about all of this, Phil?
Well, Laura, that is the most honest public health official in America, because all of them are using this for politics. The school closures are, they're extremely damaging to children. We are punishing and harming the people least at risk, at essentially statistically zero risk from this disease. They are at no greater risk in school than they would be at home, and they're at more risk from flu and more risk from car accidents, and yet we're punishing them. Why? Other than to paralyze society and try to score political points. And, the only difference between that health official and all the other ones doing the same thing is she didn't know you're not supposed to say it.
Now, Virginia, D.C., all these places, all these schools should be open 5 days a week. I think it's child abuse. I'm going to say it. It's child abuse. Phil, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And as I mentioned in my angle, the left just doesn't want you to have any fun at all.